Okay. I'm about to have a good day, no matter what they say. Sun is shining down on me, birds are singing praise. I'm about to have a good day, in every single way. God who made the universe knows me by my name, so it's a good day.
That is the best song ever. You can't just sit there and be like, yeah, it's a good day. Good morning. Great to see you all today on this incredible day to celebrate the amazing women in our lives. I don't know about you, but I was a little bit of a difficult child to raise. Just a little bit, just a hair. I'm so grateful for the patience and the persistence of my parents who loved me through a lot as a kid. And I had a little bit of an issue as a teenager, a little bit of a hearing issue. See, like when there were instructions for me to follow, it just like kind of sounded a little bit like Charlie Brown's teacher, a little garbled. The doctors are still trying to figure it out. We don't know. But I never followed instructions well. That is my mother. Tell the truth and shame the devil, Joy. So on one particular day, and I was corrected during first service to clarify that I was not a child, like 5. I was like 17 at the time, but I'm like, numbers, who cares? I was asked to unload and load the dishwasher. Now, Joy, my mother, and I have different stories of how this happened, but I am younger, so I'm going to say I'm more correct because I remember things a little bit better. Just going to throw that out there. So, she knows where I live. She's coming for me later. I promise you, I threw a couple cups in the dishwasher. She says I did not. So I hear her call to me from the other room, Suzannah, you're not done yet. Please load the dishwasher. Now, I promise you, I went back in there and loaded up a couple of dishes. I hear her call again, Suzannah, you're not done yet. 24 hours rolled by, and I come in the house in the afternoon, and there is my mom and a gallon of paint sitting next to her. She slides the paint over to me and says, I'd like you to go outside and paint the barn, and when you're done, come inside and load the dishwasher. No joke, we had a 2-story barn that was white that we were going to be painting, or it was red, we're painting black. As these photos are my witness, I did paint the barn black, and then I went inside and finished the dishes. I know that today is not an easy day for everyone. There are relationships that are strained. There are women in this room that are dreaming of motherhood. There are women in this room who have lost children. There are those with strained relationships with their own parents. But I know this. I'm grateful for the people who invested in me even when I was difficult. And I wonder if I could just take a moment to give honor where honor is due. To my mother who's in the room with us today. Mom, thank you for loving me through thick and thin, for teaching me how to have grit in the face of adversity, for teaching me to stay focused and not be distracted by the clowns on the side of the road. To my grandmother who is 90 and watching with us this morning, I thank you for loving me in the wild and in the crazy, for teaching me all of your secret recipes, or most of them, for teaching me to sew and to be a real life farm girl. But I don't just think of my mother and my grandmother. I think of other mother figures in my life, of mentors like Lisa and Janet, friends who've walked with me like Sarah, Laura, Summer, Kristen, Christy, Katie, Hannah. And so today I wonder if we can honor not only the mothers in the room, but the mother figures, the sisters, the aunts, the mentors, the friends. Can we honor them together this morning? Having someone to mentor you in your life is great until it's not. It's fantastic until they actually start speaking into your life. In our house, our kids are now at the age where they can learn how to do laundry, where they're learning to load and unload the dishes, to take out the trash. And for as many times as I've asked them to do these tasks, I have to follow up with, "You're not done yet." They unload the dishes and load them back, but then they don't put the pod in the dishwasher and start it to run. So I'll call, "Eliana, you're not done yet. Run the dishwasher." I ask Judah to take out the trash, which he does, but then he doesn't put the bag back in it. So when I'm hurried and throwing away a wet paper towel and it's like in the bottom of the trash can with no bag in it, that's a whole new level of frustration. So I call to him, "Judah, you're not done yet. Put the bag back in." But I hope more than anything that what they hear is not, "You're not done with the task." I hope when Judah graduates high school and thinks it's his time to live it up, he hears in his heart, "You're not done yet. There are still people to impact for the kingdom of God." I hope that when Eliana grows up and has the temptations of everyone vying for her attention and culture telling her how to live, that she hears the generations echoing in her heart, "You're not done yet. You are a daughter of the King, and you have more to live for. You are not done yet." We've been studying together the book of Titus and how Paul is urging these believers on in their faith. But see, typically when we start reading about Paul and start learning about Paul, we learn about him after his conversion. But see, Paul was actually not Paul the whole time. Paul was actually a man named Saul, a Christian persecuting leader in the church. He was a Pharisee. And I don't know how you grew up, but I didn't understand what a Pharisee was ever. I'm like, that's cool. And I knew this from my Southern Alabama upbringing, that I don't ever want to be a Pharisee because they're not fair, you see. And it continues on. I don't want to be a hypocrite because they're not hip with it. And if you really go into it into verse 3, I don't want to be a Sadducee because they're not. Well, actually, they are Sadducee. You know, I'm so proud. Let's go. We're all singing it together today. So a Pharisee was a religious leader and would be similar to like a priest in a synagogue here. They had the authority to speak into people's life on a religious level. He had all of the head knowledge. And now he's going and persecuting, even killing those who believe that Jesus is the Messiah, that Jesus is the Savior. So he's actually on his way to gather Christians to kill him when he has a wild conversion experience. In Acts 9:4, it says, as he, this is Paul, was approaching Damascus on this mission, which is to gather up believers and kill them, a light from heaven suddenly shone down. He fell to the ground and heard a voice saying to him, Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me? Who are you, Lord? Saul asked. And the voice replied, I am Jesus, the one you are persecuting. Now get up and go into the city, and you will be told what you must do. Saul had a massive encounter with Jesus, but he wasn't done yet. And every single Sunday, we have people who let us know that they're making a decision for Jesus for the first time. Some rededicating their lives. But listen, just because you check a box off doesn't mean you're done. There's more to your story. This is just the beginning. So someone say, you're not done yet. As a new convert, Paul was not done yet. And then we learn of another man. Now there was a believer in Damascus named Ananias. The Lord spoke to him in a vision, calling, Ananias. Yes, Lord, he replied. The Lord said, go over to Straight Street, to the house of Judas. When you get there, ask for a man from Tarsus named Saul. He's praying to me right now, and I have shown him a vision of a man named Ananias. Come in, laying hands on him so he can see again. Now, this is absolutely hilarious because every believer knew who Saul was. Saul was the guy out for them. Saul was the guy killing them. And I love that the Lord's like, let me soften it up a bit for you. Hey, you know this guy. He's from Tarsus. No big deal. His name's Saul. I think you should go to him. And Ananias is like, hold up. You're pulling a quick one on me. He says, but Lord, exclaimed Ananias. I'm like, he was probably like, heck no, tech no. I know what you're saying. I know what you're doing. I've heard many people talk about the terrible things this man has done to believers in Jerusalem. And he is authorized by the leading priests to arrest everyone who calls upon your name. But the Lord said, go, for Saul is my chosen instrument to take my message to the Gentiles and to the kings as well as to the people of Israel. I will show him how much he must suffer for my name's sake. So Silas went and found Saul. I don't know about you, but I am grateful for the people who have gone before me. The people who prayed for me before I believed. The people who stood with me when I wasn't worth standing for. But I don't want you to miss this. It takes the audacious faith of an Ananias to release the power of a Paul. We aren't done yet. There's always a seat in the room for those who are near to us and far from God. So I wonder who has invested in you? Who went before you? Who prayed for you? Who encouraged you? Who invited you? And how can you show honor to them today? See, one of the ways that we express honor to people is to express gratitude to them. But unexpressed gratitude is still ingratitude. So think about that. Who can you text today? Texting takes like 5 seconds. Just do it. Telling them you are grateful for their investment. You are grateful for them going ahead of you. Paul had the head knowledge, but he hadn't connected it to his heart yet. So he needed someone to walk with him and help him understand and know how to live a life for Jesus. Ananias opened the door, and then a man named Barnabas led the way. Then Barnabas went to Tarsus to look for Saul, and when he found him, he brought him to Antioch. So for a whole year, Barnabas and Saul met with the church and taught a great number of people. And here's a fun cliff note for you. The disciples were called Christians first at Antioch. So who is ahead of you? Paul risked everything. Barnabas risked everything. He put his own position on the line to vouch for Paul. Believers were terrified of Paul. No one wanted to get near him. They wouldn't even touch him with a 39.5-foot pole. Yet Barnabas said, no, I believe in the calling and the mission of Jesus on your life, and I'll step up and lead the way. I will mentor you. I will teach you. I'll risk everything to give you a platform to fulfill the mission that God has called you for. He risked his reputation. He risked his position in the church to help build a platform for Paul. So Paul had to be led, had to be mentored. When you go to college, you select a major. This is you selecting an area of interest that you want to get your degree in. Once you select a major, they then give you a course catalog saying these are the courses you have to complete in order to earn this degree. Makes sense to us all, right? But you can't pick a major and then do whatever you want with the courses. You can't say, I want a degree in biology and then only take courses in oil painting. But here's what we like to do. A lot of us want to pick an outcome and then design the lessons we need to learn in order to achieve that outcome. We treat mentorship like a menu. We say, I want to pick and choose the experiences that I have and hope that I get the outcome that I want. We start acting like it's a menu at the Cheesecake Factory, a menu that's thicker than the Bible. Boy, I don't know if you've ever been to Cheesecake Factory, but I felt like I was eating high on the hog when I went there. That means I was eating fancy, y'all. South Alabama, come on. We're not that far from South Alabama, I know it. Boy, you go in there and you get the royal Egyptian experience with your Italian pasta. There's nothing like it. You're like, yes, I'm fancy. Yes, I know you guys are doing that too with your hair. Just like that. See, I want to decide what I learn. God, I want to be more patient, but I don't want to take the course in difficult people. God, I want more wisdom, but I don't want the course in hardships of life. God, I want to grow closer to you, but I don't want the course of humility and truth being spoken into me. The Lord has designed us for relationship, and having someone ahead of you requires humility. What does that mean? That simply means saying, I don't have all the answers. I actually don't know every best route there is. I actually have people ahead of me that I can listen to and lean into. Can you imagine if Paul had tried to teach the believers had it not been for Barnabas? He would have hit roadblock after roadblock after roadblock because people wouldn't let him near. But Barnabas made a way. And we can see this relationship play out between Barnabas and Paul from the scriptures because as it lists out their teaching, it lists Barnabas, then Paul. What that means is that Barnabas was the primary teacher in that situation. And as Paul began to grow in his understanding and in his relationship with Jesus, he began to step out more. Now again, there was a moment. Paul could have said, okay, I've earned the degree in head knowledge. I'm now earning the degree in heart knowledge. I'm good. I've learned it all. I'm a well-rounded human. I'm going to go to heaven. I'm good. And dusted his hands. Oh, but tell the person next to you, he's not done yet. You have to have someone who is walking ahead of you. You have to have someone who is walking beside you. I love this. Every time we read about Paul, he's never in a silo of ministry by himself. It's always Paul and Silas, Paul and Priscilla and Aquila, Paul and Tychicus, Paul and John Mark, Paul and Justus, Paul and Timothy. It was always Paul and. It was always Paul and. In shipwreck, it was Paul and Silas and Luke. In prison, it was Paul and Silas. In encouragement, it was Paul and Barnabas. In prayers, it was Paul and the church at Thessalonica. Paul's ministry happened because of the people he surrounded himself by. I came across an Instagram account early in February of a person named Paul Johnson. And he had this dream in his heart of breaking the world record for running across the United States, 3,000 miles from Los Angeles to New York in 40 days. This meant he would have to sustain a 75-mile per day run at 10 minutes per mile. He ran it with a group of people following behind him in an RV who would give him massages, who made sure he had a calorie count correct, who was encouraging him along the way. And on day 4, his team sat him down and said, "Hey, we're not going to be able to sustain this pace. You won't be able to break the world record." But Paul had something else in mind. He said, "That's fine, but I'm not done yet." See, Paul was also running for Team Red, White, and Blue, who's an organization whose mission it is to come alongside veterans with mental health needs, to work with suicide prevention, to help work through PTSD. Paul said, "I'm going to raise $1 million for them, and I'm going to keep on running." So he ran through freezing temperatures, through scorching heat, through rain, through snow, through the desert. In fact, there were multiple times when he was detoured significantly because of weather, up mountains and through valleys. On day 51, he approached his final miles into New York City. They shut down the biggest streets, and people on the side of the road started jumping off the sidewalk to run with Paul. He crossed the finish line. And in an interview, they said, "Paul, you're incredible. An ultra runner of ultra runners. How did you do it? Was it the training? Was it the food? Was it the stretching?" And his response was this: "Not a single solo mile. I never ran a mile alone." You go back and you watch him run. He ended up sustaining 67 miles a day at a 10:30 pace. And he attributes it not to anything other than the people who ran alongside him. What a beautiful image of the body of Christ. You can accomplish great things, but you will not accomplish great things alone. Not a single solo mile are you meant to run alone. But having someone with you requires vulnerability. We often equate vulnerability with weakness. Do we not? We don't want to show our scars. We don't want to show the bumps and bruises because then it feels like it knocks us down on a ladder of excellence. Some fictitious thing that we set up in our mind of what greatness looks like. But Brené Brown says this: vulnerability is the most accurate measurement of courage. If we are going to find our way to one another, vulnerability will be the path. So can I encourage you today that you need to surround yourself with people who will not weaponize your pain, but will walk with you towards growth and health. We need people beside us like Priscilla and Aquila and Timothy and Silas, Barnabas. The story of Paul is the story of people. There's no apostle Paul without the people who walked alongside of him. Paul wrote over 2/3 of our New Testament, but what you will find is that none of it was written alone. None of the journey was walked alone. Not a single solo mile for Paul. Because Paul had figured out the only path to success is a path arm in arm with another believer. And Paul went through it. It wasn't easy. It wasn't all roses. In fact, it was the opposite of that. Paul lets us in 2 Corinthians on what it really looked like. He says this: 3 times I was beaten with rods. Once I was stoned. 3 times I was shipwrecked. Once I spent a whole night, a day adrift at sea. I had traveled on many long journeys, faced many dangers from rivers and robbers. I faced dangers from my own people and the Jews as well as the Gentiles. I faced danger in the cities and in the deserts and on the seas. I faced dangers from men who claim to be believers but are not. And we're like, hello, Paul, we feel you on that. I've worked hard and long, enduring many sleepless nights. I have been hungry and thirsty and have often gone without food. I have shivered in the cold and went without enough clothing to keep me warm. Paul gets it. If anyone could mail it in at that point and be like, you know what? I did well. I finished well. It was Paul. But Paul knew this, that as long as he's breathing, there are still relationships to build. As long as he is breathing, he's not done yet. Who is ahead of you? Who is beside you? Who is behind you? Paul is getting advanced in his years at this point, but he never stops. Paul continued to pour into church after church, men after women, to the next generation, which is what we've been studying with the book of Titus. Like Jesus and Barnabas, Paul adopted the mentor lifestyle. See, having someone behind you requires intentionality. It doesn't just happen because you're alive. It requires intentionality to say, I have something to offer, and carrying ownership and responsibility for the people around you. I literally have had this conversation in the last several months from a student graduating high school saying, well, finally get to live it up. I'm breaking free. And all I can think is, but you're not done yet. You're still growing with the Lord. A family who has a newborn child, and they're like, we're just going to take a couple months off for a while, maybe a year while we adjust. We're going to not hang out with friends as much and really just kind of pull back on our social life. You're not done yet. People need you. People start saying, well, I'm just swamped with my kids' sports, with my kids' academics. I don't have the time that I need to be in a life group or to attend church or to go get lunch with someone who's going to speak truthfully into me. But the truth is you're actually hiding behind pride because you're not done yet. I just literally had this conversation 2 weeks ago where someone's like, our kids have graduated. We're empty nesters. It's our turn to live life and have fun. And I literally said, oh, no. You're not done yet. Because people need your wisdom. People need your truth spoken into them. I've had people well over twice my age say, man, I'm just old. I'm old. What do I know? Everything. Everything. You're not done yet. You are not done yet. And if you don't hear it from anybody else in this room, because for whatever reason, this older generation is bought into the lie if their gray hair turns gray that they've got nothing to offer. But I want to say this, you have everything to offer. I need you. I need you to speak wisdom into my life that I have not lived yet. The person next to you needs you to speak wisdom into their life that they haven't learned yet. So guess what? You don't have to have some incredible pedigree to speak into somebody's life. You bring what you've got. What do you bring? You lead from wisdom. Paul said this, he says, I know how to live on almost nothing and with everything. I've learned the secret of living in every situation, whether it is a full stomach or empty, with plenty or with little, for I can do everything through Christ who gives me strength. What is he saying? He says, I've been there, I've done that, I've got the t-shirt to prove it, and I'm gonna help you along the way from the wisdom I have gained over the years. Why? Because I'm not done yet. I'm not done yet. We lead from experience as well. Nobody has walked the journey you have walked and carries the testimony you carry but you. You have life change to speak into people's life that on a platform I will never have the opportunity to speak because you have walked it. You have lived it. And you get to say, I have been through the lowest of lows, the highest of highs. I'm still figuring it out, but I know I have a God who's faithful. Paul continues with his list of things. He says, indeed, if others have reason for confidence in their own efforts, I have even more. I was circumcised when I was 8 days old. I'm a pure-blooded citizen of Israel, a member of the tribe of Benjamin, a real Hebrew, if there ever was one. I was a member of the Pharisees who demanded the strictest obedience to the Jewish law. I was so zealous that I harshly persecuted the church. And as for righteousness, I obeyed the law without fault. Okay, he just set it up. He's like, hey. If anyone wants to be prideful in here, it's me. I've done it. I've walked the walk. I've talked the talk. But I met Jesus. I once thought these things were valuable. I once thought that hitting that pay grade was valuable. I once thought that promotion was valuable. I once thought my status symbol was valuable. But now, I consider them worthless because of what Christ has done. Yes, everything else is worthless when compared with the infinite value of knowing Christ Jesus as my Lord. Paul wants to know everyone. He wants them to know how to grow, not to stay stuck where they are, not to hang everything on the coat rack of religion, not to hang it all on pride, on position. He said, I'm going to lead the way from my experience because I've been there. And we lead from brokenness. We all have this to offer. We all have wisdom to offer, experience to offer, and brokenness to offer. Somewhere along the line, some of us have bought into the lie that we have to have ourselves all together before we help anybody else with theirs. But the greatest testimony is when you can courageously say, I don't have it together, and I'm still figuring this out, but I'll walk with you if you'll walk with me. Paul Paul was even very open with his own wounds, with his own shortcomings, with his own failures. I want to live a life in such a way where my kids get to see my pain. Because I want them to know that it is normal to experience hurt and pain. And when you're walking with Jesus, it's normal to experience victory as well. I don't want to hide my failures from my kids and to set the standard that you have to live to some ridiculous picture of excellence. But instead, I want to say, look at how I failed here, but look at how God has redeemed me and covered me. I cannot tell you how many times I have to apologize to my own children for raising my voice, for saying things I shouldn't say, for just being downright ugly to them. But I want them to have the model set that when we fail, we repent and we make it right. I apologize to them probably way more than I say anything else, but I'm growing. And I hope that you can look at your own experiences. You can look at what you have walked through and say, man, I've been there, I've done that, I've got the t-shirt to prove it, and I want to bring somebody else with me as I go. You are not done yet. There is life change in every single seat in this room. So rather than buying into the lie that you've got nothing to offer, I want you to buy into this truth today, that you have been saved and redeemed and made whole, and somebody out there is waiting for the testimony of Jesus in your life. You are not done yet, friend.